Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of One Plus One, your place for inconvenient truth telling and myth busting. And on this, make me want to holler all things black people from Turtle Island, the US and Canada, to Britain and elsewhere. We welcome back a total badass black leftist, feminist, eco-socialist journalist, Renee Johnston of Saturdays with Renee at Black Liberation Media, which she co-hosts with frequent guest and good friend to One Plus One, Jared Ball of I mix what I like. And let's let's get into the topics I wanted to ask her about before the hour flies by us. But quick reminder to donate generously to One Plus One if you can at our PayPal. If you would like a different form of donation, then get in touch with me at Youri or Gmail. Share us widely, especially because Facebook sometimes blocks me from sharing. And please, please, please become a Patreon if you can, to my friend and colleague Chris Richards of the Eclectic Radical. Help him out. He's facing unemployment, so again, please help a comrade out. And if you need more pitching for this, guys, you can get rid of Spotify because YouTube has all of the free music. And if you do have to get rid of one extra streaming service, do Amazon Prime or HBO Max, which hosts that douchebag Bill Maher. So please do that. And on to the topic at hand. First off, Renee, welcome back to the show. It's an honor to have you back on the show.
Thanks so much. I appreciate you.
Likewise. And first question I wanted to ask you, but don't spend too much time answering this one because I have so much about the police, defunding the police and stuff like that, which I'm actually much more interested in talking to you about. But what is your assessment? But do answer this question: what is your assessment of Mamdani, the great socialist messiah that has swept the mayor of New York? Everybody is so everybody. Well, yes. Well, a lot of people are happy, and a lot of people are ready for him to be Fiorello LaGuardia. The second Fiorello LaGuardia, like, incoming. So, what's your assessment of Mamdani so far? At least on the socio-economics, the problems that face the vast majority of working class New Yorkers and the very, very tiny, precarious middle class New Yorkers.
Well, so from the beginning, I've been very clear to try and caution people about getting super excited about Zohran Mamdani, and not because of anything really outside of the fact that at the core of it, he is a Democrat,
Yeah,
right? And so, when people mistakenly called him a socialist, I tried to remind people he's not actually a socialist. He's a democratic socialist. He's running under the Democratic Party. It's just kind of different than just being an outright socialist.
yeah,
Um, people don't often like those answers, which is fine. No problem. But the reality of the situation is we are trapped in this duopoly, in this system, this binary system of blue and green. And in a state like New York, where getting on the ballot is actually relatively difficult, especially for, things like governor, where you have to get like 2% of the population in order to be a party on the ballot and all these, like it's just so much chaos.
yeah.
You're almost required to run within the duopoly to even have a chance. Um, but then on top of that, once you decide you're going to side with the Democratic Party, you go in basically with your arms tied behind your back. And no matter what Mamdani expresses about the things and I thought he had a lot of great things to say when he was campaigning. This is not to say that some of the things he didn't say, were great and welcome things for someone who's actually campaigning to run in a city such as New York to say out loud. But, we've seen him walk back a few things. I've seen some very questionable responses to some things that are happening in New York. And at the core of it, all it did was remind me that he was a Democrat. And so, everyone has to just remember that part. Like, he's a Democrat. So no matter what else happens, it's always going to be under the approval of the Democratic Party, which means it's only going to go but so far.
Exactly. And and my expectations are low of Mamdani, and I'm not even saying that because I think I'm much more left wing than him or anything like that. It's just New York. I mean, New York is what it is. I mean, New York. I mean, for all the great culture and a lot of very good, active, leftism that does exist in New York. It's one of the most unequal states, like in the United States. It's one of those states where, as you perfectly said, like California, like Massachusetts. It's one Democrat after another. A lot of times, the Democrats control local government, local municipalities, and so forth, and they govern like right wingers. And I mean,
Right.
like Wall Street, the most evil place on the face of the planet Earth, is in New York.
Right. Right. Right.
So my expectations are very low as to what Mamdani can achieve if he can do anything that does help improve the lives of the vast working class of New Yorkers and the very tiny precarious middle class of people who bounce from one unpaid internship to another or one low wage job to another. By all means, all power to him. And I'll very briefly say, when it comes to foreign policy, yeah, guys, make sure your expectations are next to non-existent, because he will go along to get along, and that's that. And as you mentioned, he is a Democrat, so yeah. Now,
yeah, I mean, I'll just quickly add the one benefit that I'll say, even though he's not, as I stated, he's not a real socialist, is his campaign did, in some ways, take some of the bite off of the word socialism. So for someone who is a democratic socialist, even though they're not a socialist, most people are not really making that distinction. So the
exactly.
fact that he got over 1 million votes as a democratic socialist actually does show some change in the general, like, mindset of a good chunk of New Yorkers, right? Like for over 1 million people to just ignore the word socialist and vote for him anyway, that does say a lot about the growing consciousness of people in the city. The problem, of course, is if he fails at everything, they'll blame socialism. The things that he gets
Yeah.
that aren't actually socialism but have some minimum benefit will get credited to socialism and the Democratic Party. Like, there's actually no win with this outside of, like, you can say socialist in New York City and maybe the entire island and surrounding 4 boroughs won't, like, turn around and try and tar and feather you, right? Like,
Well, and again, all power to Mamdani. I really do hope that some of the stuff which will immensely benefit the vast working class does get advanced, because I want to see him kick what's that douchebag's name? The New Yorker who's a rabid Zionist, an actor
oh,
whose name
is
I'm
it
completely blanking out on.
you talking about the redheaded guy?
Yes, yes.
Oh, yeah. I kind of like blame. I've like totally. I can see him. The sad part is he was in that movie. He was the school shooter in that
Yeah,
movie, right?
John
Which one was
Singleton
it?
movie, his first
Yeah, the
movie.
John Singleton. Then it was based in California. Why am I blanking on the name of the
Michael
movie?
Rappaport. Michael
Yes,
Rappaport.
Michael Rappaport. And so I used to be like, oh, like, he's all right. And now I'm just like, oh, I can't. Like, every time I even see him show up on something, I'm like, skip. I
Exactly,
don't even want to
exactly. So
listen
like
to
so
him.
so 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 I want Mamdani, if that's the Republican or the Democrat primary, or those two collude to, like, prop him. I want Mamdani to kick his ass, and I do want 50 Cent to leave New York, but I don't want him to go to Florida. There's enough fascists in Florida. I just want the plane to crash somewhere in the I don't know, the Bermuda Triangle. I'm not wishing death on him, so just that he kindly fucks off. Alrighty, on to on to talking about this now. Renee, where yeah, I want to know, before I ask these very big questions about the police and policing and so forth. Where do you stand on what to do with these out of control thugs in blue and black? Are you for radically reforming the police because because you do find that the police are a necessary evil sometimes, or are you definitely for abolishing the police?
Oh, the whole thing has to go.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Then I can. Okay. Then I. Okay. Then I'm going to ask this question then, which is, are you for community control of the police as a way to? Yeah. Are you for community control over the police as a way for us to get to a place where we can abolish the police? I'm very curious to respond.
Yes. Yes.
Do explain then.
So, I think part of when I have these conversations about abolition with people, um, almost always the folks who are like, I don't understand this abolition thing. The first question is like, well, what do you do about the crime? Right. And so there does have to be an answer for how do you deal with the things within society that are not actual like interpersonal harm, which is what most things when people talk about crime and when crime is on television, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like that's usually what they're talking about, the interpersonal crime, the car theft, like jewelry theft, breaking into homes, that type of thing. This is all interpersonal harm.
Yeah.
And so if you have community control, meaning that the community has banded together and formulated a system that works within their community for how they manage when things are happening, that is community control, right? So maybe that means that there is a group that patrols at night, and once you see somebody within your own community patrolling, you're probably less likely to do something crazy because you don't want to be pointed out to your own community members as being problematic. So all of those things play in. Additionally, in my opinion, part of the community control also has to be resources within the community. So you have a community set up where they are supporting each other, where people know where to go if they need something, if someone's short of something that's a resource necessary, they have like somewhere to go. There's not a food desert. Maybe they have a shared garden, right? Like these types of things.
Yeah.
Which is also part of community control. Because what a lot of people skip over when they're talking about quote unquote crime is how much of this quote unquote crime is based simply on the fact that people don't have access to the things that they need. And so you get desperate to get those things that you need.
Yeah.
And then you participate in some interpersonal harm because you're trying to find a way to survive.
Yeah.
And this is easily dismissed by people who are like, oh, well, you're just saying that. But the reality is the real crimes that most impact the majority of communities are never policed, right? So there is no policing of, defrauding communities. There's no policing of banks that overcharge people. Like the poorer you are, the worse a bank is for you, right? There is no policing of
Wow. Very
wage
good point.
theft.
Yeah.
Right? There is no policing of these white collar, like high level crimes, tax evasion, like all these things that directly impact your entire community, right? There is no policing of environmental harm. That like all of these things that really actually could allow a community to take care of itself and to provide itself its resources and for them to take care of each other. These are all the things that no one polices. And then they're like, oh, well, look at this community that has all this crime. We got to send all the cops in. But they never look at what is it that we're going to do in order to allow this community the space and the ability to survive.
Yeah.
And then maybe you won't have this interpersonal crime because they can rely upon each other to survive. But, people will say, well, that's a pipe dream and all these things. And, call it what you want. But the reality is, I would much prefer to focus on how do we allow these systems to be created, right? And to become a thing than actually pretend like the larger problem that exists is not really the issue that needs to be focused upon, because that to me is the pipe dream.
Well, that is a perfect segue to this question. Perfect. Well, that's a perfect segue to this question, which is and let's talk about the easy, cheap arguments that people often use, even if they hate the police and know that the police are state terrorists, racial terrorists, if you even want to be more specific than that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the easy, cheap, counter arguments that sometimes even our own comrades might use against us.
Mm-hmm.
Serial killers and child abductors and people who abuse children. Now, this I thought was fascinating. The more I actually dig into abolishing the police, serial killers, and all of these supposedly big crimes, the more I'm just shocked at what a racket the police are and how much we have been subjected to the best propaganda after U.S. militarism and so forth, which is copaganda. So here's a funny thing. So in the U.S. has the most serial killers on the planet, arguably. Number one. Imagine that we're number one in that. but but here's the interesting thing. Most sociopaths, what we call sociopaths, who we think become serial killers, most sociopaths actually don't become serial killers. They do join the banking world and the corporate world and stuff like that, which I think is quite interesting in and of itself. But they don't become a real life, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, or Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy, and and all that stuff. So I think that's interesting. Then when we look at the issue of child abductions, now I don't want to minimize the trauma that went that's the guy whose name I'm sorry I'm blanking out of, but he's the guy who hosts. I think Joe Walsh or John Walsh, who hosts America's Most.
John Walsh. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Exactly. Who hosts America's Most Wanted. For people who don't know, he lost his kid to an abduction, to a serial killer. Awful what happened to him. However, his show has widely been criticized. America's Most Wanted has been widely criticized as propaganda, no innocence until proven guilty, and really encouraging vigilantism and so forth. Now, he was behind a big, tough on crime bill related to child abductions and people who abuse children physically, sexually, and whatnot. But this is unbelievable. The statistics, America's own statistics, people who deal in crime and so forth, found this out: that child abductions, including when Walsh was promoting this thing and depicting America as out of control with child molesters and people, abusing children and so forth, child abductions are actually unbelievably low. Most child abductions are parents doing it to one another because their relationship has gone very sour. And most people who are in prison for child sexual abuse and abductions actually did not even do it, but they're on the sex offenders registry from Walsh's tough on crime nonsense. And I thought this was the most shocking. And I'm not minimizing how awful sexual abuse is, child abduction, and the abuse that comes with that, and rapes and stuff like that. But most rapes and child abuse, most of the times when they happen, it's not some random stranger. It's not even somebody who mugs you with like in an alley and does it. Most of the times it's a family member or someone close to the family, a community figure like a priest or something like that. So all that being said, So all that being said, why don't abolitionists, who are often women of color, Black, Indigenous people, Latinx people, Two-Spirit people, why don't they lean more into this in order to convert a vast, largely white middle class and the white working class folk who need to hear this message that most that need to hear this message, on top of the fact that most people who are warehoused in prison, the vast majority, are there for non-violent drug offenses and having, a tiny amount of, whatever, pot or cocaine. Your response.
So, so part of the problem is, and this is my pessimistic side talking,
Okay.
these people don't care. They don't care.
Wow. Okay.
We are currently living in a country where the largest scandal with regard to child trafficking is ongoing and no one cares.
Yeah.
Right? No one cares.
Yep. The
And
Epstein
so,
human trafficking scandal. Yeah.
right. And so, and encompassed in that, you have child abuse, child sexual abuse, child rape, child, like you have all of these things wrapped up in that, right? And everyone's more concerned about, well, whose name is in the emails, whose name is in the emails, and no one's concerned about actually getting any kind of responsibility. Like there's no accountability being forced upon anybody whose names are in the like people who are in the files just get to retire and like resign from their jobs and just leave the public eye. There is no accountability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So putting that into context, which is the reality of the situation, we live in a place where people don't care, right? There are tens of thousands of children getting bombs dropped on them on the other side of the world. And this country is doing it. And the people don't care, right? So the statistics and the reality of the fact that I think it's like 20, somewhere between 25 and 30% of people who are currently incarcerated are awaiting trial. They haven't even been found guilty of anything, right?
Yeah,
This is a common,
that's the even bigger scandal.
right? This is common knowledge. No one cares, right? So to me, the real issue is not even trying to explain to people who don't care why the problem that exists is not going to help anything. They already don't care. They don't care about the problem. Right? They're perfectly content to just go along and do things as they want to do them. And the reality, the more striking reality, I think, of all of these things is the police don't often solve any of these crimes. Right?
I shouldn't even laugh about that because it's awful, but that's actually true.
But this is right. So when people, so I have to tell you, almost 100% of the time, when someone says to me, well, what are you going to do about the crime? I go, well, has crime stopped with us being the most over-policed country in the world? No? Okay, then. So what, like, you think things are going to get worse? Like, we're already living in a place where crime is not prevented by the presence of police. The increase of police doesn't do anything to crime. None of this stuff that they tell you is what has to happen happens when you add a police officer, except maybe the person you called to get the health check on is going to die by the hand of the person who's supposed to be doing the health check, right? Yeah. And so I think what's more important for people to understand is that the carceral, this is why I'm abolition all the way. The carceral system as it exists, does not work, right? We spend an inordinate amount of time, resources, money, environmental space, all of these things, caging people for things that are interpersonal crimes that could be better resolved if we just provided community resources, right? And so you can't fix that system. You have to destroy it. And I'm not a person, I don't think that everybody should be roaming free. Like, I do think that there are people who literally have problems and maybe should not be allowed to just wander around society,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
I do understand that. But if we had a system that wasn't always focused on interpersonal harm and locking up people just for the sake of locking them up and keeping them caged because they don't have enough money for bail and all of these things, maybe you can actually deal with the people who don't belong in regular society in a way that's humane,
Yeah.
right? Because just because you don't belong wandering around in regular society, it doesn't mean you need to be treated like a caged animal either. And you
Well,
can't
well,
fix
well,
that
well, well,
system.
well, what I find quite shocking, and you probably could talk about this more, but okay, more and more people are starting to uh, more and more mental health is no longer being a taboo, and people are actually responding to people with mental health issues the way they should have always been responding, which is compassion. MTV, big corporate outlet, I remember they did a whole campaign called Mental Health is Health. Wonderful. And stuff
Right.
like that. And nowadays, like, regardless of whether you think Michael Jackson is innocent or not, but nowadays, like, people like mocking like his body dysmorphia and so forth like that, it's just not going down. The way people like mocked like Britney Spears, who wasn't even really going through mental health crisis, if you read her memoirs, like all that shit is like out the window, and people are being much more open and honest about their mental health plight and so forth, and that's wonderful, and that's just great. And even like the most radical fringe leftists are all advocating that mental health care be merged in new or existing single payer healthcare systems or NHS type of systems. So that's all wonderful. So that being said, I thought it was shocking. I read that a lot of people who do have mental health issues, they just get locked up in prison. They get locked up in
Mm-hmm.
prison,
Mm-hmm.
them having a nervous breakdown and hurting somebody, them having them snapping and stalking somebody and hurting somebody. Even though okay, they clearly have a mental health condition which needs to be looked after
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason, they just get warehoused in prison. They meet with a site, or they meet with a shrink like 5 minutes because that person's too busy with other people, and the most they get out of is they're put in solitary confinement and they're given their medication, and
Mm-hmm.
that's that.
Right.
And we all know what happens in prisons. We all know that prisons are awful places where the rule of law and where human rights abuses, even basic 101, is completely out the window. Ergo, the worst place for somebody who has mental health issues. We can talk about the problems with mental health facilities, but that's a whole nother topic for another day. Your response to that will, yeah, your
Well, I mean, it's all part of the same systemic issues, right? So when you consider that healthcare in this country is a matter of profit,
mm-hmm,
right? And is not actually about having healthy people who live in within your nation's borders, right?
mm-hmm,
Someone who is having a mental health crisis or someone who is struggling with mental health issues, there is no system that exists that is actually supposed to help these people, right? And let's even go further to remind people that a chunk of our mental health population are veterans,
wow,
right?
wow,
So,
wow,
right? So go ahead and link that to the military industrial complex, which is again a for-profit system. So they don't care if someone is traumatized for what they've been sent on the other side of the world to do to black and brown people and they come back and now
yeah,
they can't function in society, right? Because that's a whole other thing, right? And so when you live within a place where the system of healthcare is based upon profit, there is no interest in a healthy population. So there is no interest in healthy foods. There's no interest in actual like prevention of illness and things like that, right? The profit is in the treatment. So what you instead have is a high population, a population with a high amount of people who are literally unhealthy and for whom the system is profiting off of their being unhealthy. And this includes mental health. So no one cares. Again, no one cares. And when I say no one, I don't want your audience to think that I think this is like a country of 300 and almost 400 million people who just don't care. But the problem is that of the 400 million people, and give or take, you have children, babies, all those things, I think we're somewhere around like 250 adults, right?
Yeah.
You have 250 million adults who, for the most part, are just trying to fucking survive. You're
Yeah.
They're just trying to survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they don't even understand that the stress and strain that they're living under is caused by this same system that is incarcerating people for no reason, that is maintaining unhealthy systems, that is crushing your environment, that is over policing you. We all have the same enemy. Right?
Exactly. Exactly. But okay, so then that being said, so there is a problem with Americans being programmed to think that this is the best country on the face of the planet Earth. We're number one. We're number one. There is a narcissism problem with the United States, and Britain also has the exact same problem. France also has the exact same problem. Australia, New Zealand. But hey, we're just talking about the U.S. But that being said, okay, so you think if we were to, so if I was to engage in good faith, with with a leftist or even a liberal about why we need to abolish the police and how their concerns about the serial killer, the child rapist, or the child molester, or the serial rapist and stuff like that. First of all, the statistics are very low in the people who actually engage in those crimes. And the kind of people who do even engage in those crimes, it's actually very, very rare. And that the police, most of what the police do does not even go into finding a murderer, into solving these crimes. It goes into very punitive, what I call neo-Dickensian things. We all know about the new Jim Crow, but it goes into very punitive stuff like giving somebody a ticket, banging on somebody's door because somebody's complaining about like the noise or something like that, and all sorts of other.
And also the reality is that I think it's been proven that our law enforcement process sucks. These people don't care about stopping crime. They care about pinning it on the first person they can find, which is why our rate of like removal of freeing people from prison is totally out of control, because you have all these people sitting behind bars who don't belong there. And then meanwhile, while they're so busy working in cahoots with the prosecutor and the AG's office and all these people, the person who's committing the crimes is still free to commit the crime.
Yeah.
That everybody's all up in arms worried about, right? But no, like, people have to stop for a second and really think about the reality of the situation. We are living in a system where policing does not work. And it is not one bad apple. The tree is rotten. The ground is sour. The water is poisoned. The air has noxious gases in it. The entire fucking orchard needs to be undone, and we just need to start fresh.
But do you think? But again, so if we were to approach somebody in complete good faith, and we told them the whole truth about the serial killers and so forth, and even showed them a greatest hits of the police when they sucked at getting serial killers, Jeffrey Dahmer, Robert Pickton, John Wayne Gacy.
Right.
And what was the other? Okay, I'm blanking on others, but there is a greatest hits we can do. We can actually do a bunch of shows of how the police absolutely sucked at trying to get a serial killer, how they pursued the wrong person. I mean,
You
beat
don't even
Suck
have to
Up and
do it.
stuff like
Listen,
that.
even all these, and this is my new thrill, so it's secret for everybody.
Yeah,
I love watching crime TV.
yeah,
Why? Because the police always look like morons. They've always missed the big thing. It's always some like old lady who lives across the street who figured it out. Like, it's never because they did their job.
ex-
Right? Like, it's almost not like they almost never get it right, Youri. Right? They
exactly,
almost never get it right. And so
exactly.
you don't even have to go as far as like creating it. Just go watch like Homicide that's on Netflix, and you will see all the constant errors that get made and how many crimes don't get solved because these people are incompetent, right? They're
Exactly.
incompetent. And so,
Exactly.
so I get what you're saying. Like, you can, you want to show people these things, but at the core of it, someone has to be willing to undo an entire lifetime of propaganda, right?
And
And
yeah,
that's the
and that's the
problem,
biggest problem. That is the biggest
right?
problem.
That's the problem because I mean, sometimes I look at things and I'm like, why is there a cop in this storyline? Like, why in the rom-com is like the police officer have to be called in the distance? Why did it, the serve and protect going by on the side of the car? It's in everything. So we have been consistently reminded over the course of our lifetimes that police are the good guys, that they're
Yeah.
there to serve and protect, that if you have a problem, you call 911. Like, these are things that people have spent their entire lives being reminded of, with it being reinforced. So, what you really have to do is you have to break that first. Because no
Yes.
matter
Yeah.
what information you give to people, they still have all of that built-in reserve understanding that police are good guys. They're there to serve and protect, and you have to call 911 if you have a problem.
But then, but then I have to ask this. But then I have to ask you this question, which is, uh, okay. Yeah. So how do you respond then to this? The person who only believes in radically reforming and radically defunding the police, but not abolishing. What would you say to someone who says, why don't we just have radical defunding of the police in which the money they are given only goes to finding the serial killers, the child abductions, intervening in domestic violence? Why wouldn't that work? Yeah. What would be your response to that?
I mean, it's
that
the
argument?
same problem. That doesn't work now. So you're going to put all the money into a system that already has proven that it doesn't work? They're not stopping silly. They're not stopping it now, right? And as far as when people say like, well, what about like domestic violence? Do people not understand who the greatest purveyors of domestic violence are? It's
Yeah,
law enforcement,
yeah.
right?
Unfortunately,
Like, they're literally, so now you're going to pay them to police themselves on domestic violence? Okay, how you think that's going to work? Right? Like,
but I think the question always goes to is to what do we actually deal when there is a Jeffrey Dahmer, a Robert Pickton.
and I will go back to saying, if you stop investing time and energy in a broken system, you can actually invest time, energy, and funds into a system that would actually help to prevent these people from, and to allow them to still live like people while removing them from general society. I'm not against saying like, this person who clearly has an issue with doing personal harm over and over again to everybody. I have no issue with saying that person has to be removed from society.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
What I disagree with is this idea that the way to remove that person from society is to put them in a 6 by 6 cage behind metal bars with people who are untrained, who don't care about humanity, who are quick to do complete evil to other people, and having them sit on top of 3,000 other people, many of which shouldn't even be there. The whole system is not set up in order to just treat people like they're humans. And just because someone's incapable of managing themselves around other humans, that does not mean that they're not a human.
Yeah.
And
So
while we're paying for millions of people to be incarcerated for whatever given reason at the time that they're being incarcerated, from again, most of which has nothing to do with serial anything, right? We can't focus any reserve, there's no possibility of taking care of actually dealing with people who don't belong wandering around in regular society.
when it comes to that issue, the issue of the serial killer or the rapist who really does not know what no means no and can't control itself, does that actually go back to what I was even talking about previously, that we need an actual mental healthcare system, which is part of a single payer system, which the U.S. doesn't even have, but we need, but now the U.S. is it's so messed up that like we need radical change. We need that single payer healthcare system, which includes mental health care. That will be
Yes.
much more effective in dealing with those who might commit
Yeah.
heinous crimes and so forth, as opposed to this
Right.
this this
And
current
and to be
racket of
frank,
this.
like I don't know any serial killers that I'm aware of, right? So, and I'm not a trained psychologist, psychotherapist, like I don't have a PhD in anything. So I don't know what makes somebody decide that they don't care about other people's humanity and they're just going to do whatever thing they feel like doing to appease whatever's going on in their brain when they decide to do it, right?
Yeah.
But I do know that there is no dealing with that with the system that currently exists. Like it can't be resolved in any way, shape, or form with the system that currently exists. It's not possible.
Then I have to ask this question. And I cannot wait for you to push back against this one. Push back against the following. By the way, this is in a lot of propaganda movies which highlight police brutality and police corruption, and you will see this.
The good guy, the good guy.
Oh no, it's worse than the good guy. This is even worse than like the whole like good cop, bad cop, and so forth. And you will even see this in shows which show bad apples, blah blah blah, and so forth. So push back against this argument that the police are working class. And if we just paid the police more and treated them like the sacred military in which they get free college and so forth and free healthcare and so forth, the police wouldn't be prone to corruption and the blue wall of silence, which we know whistleblowers like Frank Serpico have had to deal with. Your response to that?
I mean,
Where
it's
do you
just
even start?
I mean, first of all, the premise that police don't make money is false. It's just incorrect. So it's not even I don't even know that this is an argument worth having because police are not the lowest paid group across any like if you're looking just in general at like if we want to call it working class society, right? Like police is they're not down on the bottom of that list, right? So one, we can just throw that whole argument out the water. Like it's a nonsensical argument. It's a
Okay.
non-starter. That said, I'll go back to what I said a little while ago. So we're going to pay them more money to continue the incompetence and to not do all the things that they're currently not doing. Because now we're saying that the real problem is that they're not making enough money. Like, okay, so how about instead of giving the money to police, you give the money to regular workers so that they can have, work one job instead of 3 jobs, right? Like, how about that? How about we do that part instead, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just such a bad art. I can't even believe people are really making that argument. That's a really bad
Oh yeah,
argument. That's a
yeah,
bad one. Oh, that's a bad
right.
one.
And it's in so much propaganda movies. So like even and yeah, like I said, it's in so much propaganda movies. Like I'm not even talking about like the police as the heroes. I'm talking about films and television which do show police corruption, which do show the police as the pile.
Oh, but the reason is that they need to make more money. They're not making enough money. But okay,
Exactly.
so then we can even pan out some, right? So if the issue, let's say that's actually the problem. Let's say the actual problem is that police don't make enough money and therefore they have to do all this trickery and corruption and stuff so that they can survive, right?
Exactly.
How about we go after the capitalist system that makes people think that they have to have all this money to do the thing, right? So
Exactly.
maybe if we didn't live in a system where people were convinced that you had to have millions of dollars and drive fancy cars and be able to fly first class and blah, 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 all the things, right?
Yeah.
Maybe if we lived in a society where people just had to make enough money that they could eat and the people that they buy things from could eat, right? Like, maybe if that was our society, you wouldn't have to worry about corruption.
Exactly, exactly. But then how do you respond to people who go, well, France has yeah, well, yeah. And then what would be your response to people who say, "Well, France has a much more socialist, egalitarian system than the United States and Britain, but they still have crime and serial killers." And what about the USSR and even post-capitalist Russia, which I mean, you want to talk? There's also like countless of like horrendous like serial killer police incompetency scandals there. So how would you say to people that say like, look, there was a socialist system in Russia, France has some elements of socialism, even the Nordic countries, they have still they still have crime and so forth. Ergo, the police are a necessary evil. But we do have to do something about like police incompetency and police corruption and so forth. Yeah, your
I
response.
go back. I go back to my same answer. Like there is no pushing me off of this. People are people,
Yeah,
right? You are never going to be able to encounter every single thing that happens within somebody's mind that would make them do something that is contrary to the survival of other people who they encounter, right? Like there is no predicting that. And no matter what people think AI is capable of, it's also never going to be capable of doing that, right? So you do have to have a system that deals with those things. I've said it multiple times here and I've said it multiple times in other spaces. The issue that we have is our system is not set up to deal with those things. Our system is set up to unfairly incarcerate already oppressed and under-resourced communities in order to profit for the people who are part of a capitalist system. And so I can't speak to, well, there's crime in other places and they have cops. Okay, great. Like, what do you want me to tell you? Like, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a system in place to deal with these things. What I'm saying is the system in place, one, does not deal with the things.
yeah.
Two, unfairly deals with things that it doesn't have to deal with. Three, doesn't at all deal with the things that are actually causing the majority of the problem. And therefore, we cannot keep holding on to this non useful system because it is not going to get us anywhere.
Interesting. And then I'm very curious your response to this one because I'm actually quite agnostic on it, although I lean more towards legalize it, which is the issue of prostitution, sex work. Are you for legalizing it or keeping it illegal but decriminalize large amounts of it? Where's your stance and why one over the other? Very curious.
So I have no desire to criminalize what people do with their own bodies,
Okay.
period. Okay. So if you decide that the thing that you can do best is whatever you're going to do with your body and that's how you're going to make money, then so be it.
Okay.
That's not my cup of tea to do, but I don't judge. People got to do what they want to do. But I will bring back to the table that we live in a society where people cannot afford to eat. They can't afford to have a roof over their head. They can't afford the general resources that you need to survive. You can't get health care, all of these things. So perhaps, just a thought, if we were a resource society, people wouldn't feel the need to use their body as a means to make money, right? And maybe people will. And if they do, great. So be it. I don't judge, and it's not my business.
Yeah.
You don't criminalize people for doing things that are not harmful, interpersonal, or otherwise to other people. Like, we're sending people to jail for having sex with people. Like, are we kidding? Like, this is the thing. We can't be serious with this.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you can be a big boss and a billionaire. You never pay anybody. You shit on your workers. You're completely destroying the environment with what you're doing, and you can just do whatever you want, and that's okay. The whole thing is upside down and makes no sense.
Do you find then that that the issue of prostitution, and I'm not, and not talking about the people who voluntarily, want to do what some of us consider very eccentric, but oftentimes the people who are trafficked and pimped and so forth, like that, that's just more of a that's just more of a symptom of the capitalist system in the form of the United States or in the form of a colonized country, and that's a grotesque symptom of it. The issue isn't really sex work. The issue is that this capitalist system makes people get involved in organized crime, get involved within the drug trade, and even that, the whole drug war is that prohibitionist racket is there, just to to purposely purposely poisoning certain communities who then get arrested and then are warehoused in prison and so forth like that.
I mean, and yes, I think all of that is part of it, but I also think that people should consider that there's a number of young people who get caught up in sex trafficking who are simply runaways who believe the wrong person, right?
Yeah.
And why does that happen? Because you're living in a house where maybe your parents are stressed. Maybe your parents are abusive because of whatever they're living with outside of their home, right? Or you live in a place where you feel completely trapped because your community is under-resourced and over-policed. I mean, there's any number of reasons that we could, like, I bet if you found 100 people who got caught up in any level of quote unquote crime, you would have 100 different reasons for why people got caught up in that crime.
Yeah.
Right? There is no, and that's why at the core of it, you have to look at the general system. Because the individual reason for people to do things, you're never going to be able to quantify it in a way that you're going to be able to stop everybody from doing that thing. But
Yeah.
what you can do is provide resources, provide healthcare, provide housing, provide good jobs so people can live, provide the ability for people to stay home with their children so that maybe, you have children who grow up knowing their parents and feel a little more comfortable in their home so they don't get caught up in these things. These are all systemic things. These are all large picture issues that if we could address the large picture issues, a lot of the interpersonal things, I think, would actually resolve.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, the more one actually researches what the police do and just how bad they are at fighting crime and so forth. What I find, quite astonishing actually about copaganda is the following. So the serial killer, which is often used as the easy trope to why we need the police, even need the police as a quote unquote necessary evil. I mean, Jack the Ripper, last I checked, They didn't catch him. And when people say, well, that's because, they didn't have, the DNA testing and so forth. Well, Robert Pickton and Jeffrey Dahmer and John Wayne Gacy, and then all of these other serial killers who target prostitutes because they know that they are the unwanted, they are the ones that society has just thrown apart, and the police are not going to police them because the police actually oftentimes are the ones who are abusing sex work and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
curious your response. So curious your response like that. So even I, myself, who gets a little queasy about legalizing prostitution, I just think like I just think like it's better to legalize it. However much of a dick you want to be about like regulations and stuff like that, by all means go ahead. But leaving prostitutes at the hands of the police, who oftentimes are the ones who abuse them, and when they are being attacked by a serial killer or a predator, the police often just do not, and I repeat, do not give a shit. Again, look at the Robert Pickton scandal and any other similar one. I think between the rock and the hard place, like this is why I lean more towards legalization as opposed to you know, criminalizing. Yeah.
I see sex work the way I see recreational drug use. Leave people
explain
alone.
that. Explain
Leave
that.
people alone. If they like, where is it required that anybody has to tell another person what they should be doing with their own bodies? Right? Like, again, I see all of these things as just opportunities for the system to oppress people for situations, for the most part, for which they have no control, right? There's a lot of drug use happening because people are fucking depressed, right? They're working three jobs, they don't make enough money, they're struggling to eat, they have mental health problems, like it's all wrapped up in one big awful ball, right? It's all wrapped up in one big awful ball. And until we remove the things that are actually creating the situations in which people feel like they need to do things that are unhealthy for themselves and each other, there is no fixing the problem. And so to criminalize somebody because they can't deal, and so they decide to do whatever drugs they decide to do because they can't deal, where, for what? For what reason? Like, why? Why? I just
But
don't see the point.
second to last question would be, what about the issue of organized crime? Now, oftentimes people will say, well, most organized crime, most people who are involved in organized crime, they are involved in, the drug trade and stuff like that. Also prostitution and so forth. If you just legalize it, and again, you can be as much of a mean-tested person in terms of legalizing the way folks are when it comes to the legalization of, casinos and so forth like that. But there are organized crime folks who don't get involved in the drug trade, but get involved in lots of scamming and stuff like that. You talked about, like a lot of white collar criminals who swindle people out of their money and stuff like that, who are involved in lots of scams. So what would you say to someone who says that we still need the police because of organized crime? Organized crime find lots of ingenious ways of wrecking people's lives, even if you stopped the drug war tomorrow and had a sensible legalized way of sex work and whatnot.
There is no larger conglomerate of organized crime bosses than fucking police officers. Like, are we kidding right now? Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to find a larger web of organized crime than you're going to find in most police departments.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, again, like we go back to the same thing again. People are trying to, and again, it's not because people just want to be like people actually feel this way, right? Like people, and I'll never forget. I was taught the first time. I want to say the first time I interviewed Hiram Rivera. Hiram said
Yes,
to me,
yeah. Good
Hiram
man,
said
good
to me,
man.
listen, like in the end, people really do get carjacked and they're afraid to walk through to drive through their neighborhoods, right? Like it's not that the crimes don't exist, right? The quote unquote crimes don't exist. It's not that the interpersonal harm doesn't happen. It's not that people aren't afraid. Like none of these things are fake, right? But the problem is if people see these things as these outside entities that happen and the only people that exist to fix it are law enforcement officers, right? You're already having an argument with somebody who doesn't understand what's happening, right? Because when I say the largest conglomerate of organized crime is in police department, I am not joking, right? These people are criminals. And that's why they're police officers because they're not going to police each other, right?
Yeah,
And so it's important for people to understand again, like you're always going to have people within societies who are seeking to take advantage of other people because they simply are not as pressed with humanity, right? And the hope for humanity is that if you remove a lot of these issues, that in time we evolve to a humanity where people don't take advantage of
yeah,
each other, right? But we can never get to that place when people can't survive because of whatever systemic thing that exists
yeah.
that is causing these outside issues. But to rely to look at like organized crime as if it's this thing that's happening and we need police to deal with it is just a nonsensical it's a nonsensical theory because organized crime is happening within the police departments and organized crime is happening in how many corporations, businesses, whatever. Like all these people are criminals and they don't
Exactly,
get policed.
exactly. In
Right?
fact,
So
yeah. Go ahead, go ahead.
no, I mean that's all that's it. Like law wage theft is only second to tax evasion in how much money it costs the country.
Wow. Are you serious? Oh,
Yes,
wow.
it
Damn.
is tax evasion and then wage theft. That's the
Uh,
order.
uh,
Interpersonal crime is like the smallest percentage of what costs the nation money.
this is also why we all should be feminists and of course anti-racism because that happens like a lot.
Right.
But it's interesting. But I also want to add to what you were saying because I've been doing lots of research into organized crime and oh my gosh, and I think it's just unbelievable like how much of a racket like like the film industry is and what it gets people to
Mhm.
believe because so many people when you even talk about like organized crime, there's often this stupid myth
Yeah,
that
the
or, that, that,
Italians,
organ,
the
that the
Sicilians, the
organized
Irish
criminals.
mob, right? Like it's always these like oh these like foreigners who come in and the family and again, not that these things aren't real and don't exist, but grand scheme, they are a very small part of the general systemic problems that we have. And so to
Exactly.
focus all the energy on that it's just it's illogical.
But not only that, but also the whole bullshit that the people who do organized crime, like the Cosa Nostra, that they only kill such and such a person, that they don't kill children and like members of like family and so forth. Okay, that's BS. Another big myth is that organized crime they actually have like values and they believe in and that they're like thieves. Wait, what's that thing called? Uh, like arms and thieves or something like that, or no? How does it go? Okay, that they're these Robin Hood type of people,
Right. Okay.
but
Hmm.
that's actually not true. organized crime, what it really is, and if you really even study how it developed in Sicily and so forth, it was a result of basically just like no law and order, not to use the right wing term, but there was basically just like no law and order. Sicily was a place that was constantly being colonized by
Right.
bigger powers and so forth. And the organized crime was basically just a reactionary symptom of a decrepit problem of feudalism and capitalism and so forth. And when you do have organized crime, are they going after the big bosses? Are they going after the big conglomerates? No, they're picking on the little guy. They're picking on the working class
Right.
person, which is why when the Italian state needed unions to get their heads cracked, when the far right wing junta in Taiwan or South Korea or Japan needs somebody to break a union strike,
They call the police in.
and if they call the police, but they also call organized crime bosses, the Yakuza, the Triads, the Cosa Nostra, and America is filled with incidents like that where there's a strike or you need to get rid of these rabble rousers, the extreme socialists, the communists. Who are you going to call? Well, the police busters, obviously, but also organized crime folks. So
Right. So absurd. It's so absurd.
so that has to be out there, and that has to be pushed, and that has to be pushed back because I'm just so tired of of the arguments that like Robert De Niro. Every other time he gets interviewed and he's asked about Goodfellas or whatever mobster like he's playing, he'll always say like a stupid version of, oh well, the mafia, they had some values and stuff like that. And then he goes on this bizarre rant about how much he hates Donald Trump when Donald Trump worked with organized crime and like his mentor,
So
his
absurd.
mentor Roy Cohn was a lawyer for 5 families.
Oh.
So takes a scumbag to know a scumbag, but yeah. Uh, final question. A final question because we're going a bit over time. But my final question, Renee, is this. I asked you this last time when we were both on the eclectic radical, but you didn't really get the chance to answer properly. So I wanted to ask you this final question, which is, what do you think it's going to take for the left in the U.S., those who really are like sincerely, leftists and so forth like that, like the Green Party, Party for Socialism and Liberation, the anti-imperialist movement, the Palestine Solidarity movement, those who are involved in the rights of pushing back against xenophobia and the rights of undocumented people and so forth, eco-socialists and whatnot. What do you think it's going to take for people power movements to show more urgent solidarity to the plight of Native Americans, Indigenous Hawaiians, and Indigenous Alaskans? Very curious to response.
Um, that's a tough one because, again, like, I think so many people who live here are totally unaware of the genocide that occurred in order for this country to become what it became eventually, right? And so, essentially what you have is you have like a 250 long, probably 500 year, like post 500 years of memory loss, right? We're we are right now like Israel 450 years from now, right? Where people just like all of a sudden, like the people weren't here, right? Like when people don't understand the history of how these founding people that everybody wants to give credit to for this country,
Founding
like
fathers and
right, like like they came right, they
those
came
miserable sons
here,
of a bitches, as
right,
Ford
like
would call them.
they came here and they were so like creative and they were so able to like do the things. And I'm like, they killed a whole bunch of people when they got here, and they did it intentionally. And then they killed off the buffalo, and then they killed off the forest land. And then they started roping off parts of the country and saying, oh, well, we're gonna do property taxes on these things, and you all have to move. And then they forced the Trail of Tears. Like, there's a whole history that's been totally disregarded, right? So I highly recommend that folks read the Indigenous People's History of the United States. It's a
Yeah.
phenomenal retelling
Yeah.
of that story. Also, interestingly enough, the book Palo Alto, and I'm blanking on the author's name, actually begins with the gold rush and how they forced out the Native Americans out of California. And
Funny. I lived in Palo Alto, so that's hilarious. So
you should look that book up. It's an excellent story. It's an excellent book. And so I think for people, to actually start caring about the truly indigenous folks of this land, of this colonized space, is they have to learn history. And they have to be reminded and taught about the incredible greed and ghoulishness that played the role in order for us to be here. And it's an unfortunate, I don't have a good answer, right? Because we're here now, right? Like, I don't have a good answer for how you navigate that at this point. But I had somebody one time say to me, like, well, what if some person came up to your door and was like, well, this used to be my family's land, and can trace it back 500 years and whatever. And I was like, well, I'll just figure out what I need to pack. Like, okay, cool. Like, I'm not proud of being part of the I'm not proud of being part of the colonizers. Like, I don't want to be part of the fucking colonizers. I have no interest in maintaining that. I don't believe in American exceptionalism. I don't believe in America as a thing. I don't believe in individualism. I don't believe in I pay property taxes and this land is mine. Like, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. And so, I believe in humanity. And so we'll just go with that.
All right. So, okay. You know, actually, perfect response. I actually really don't even know how to even top that. So, but yes, but yes, the plight of Native Americans is criminally overlooked, even amongst the best of the left. I'm talking about the black left, queer liberationist left, those who fight against xenophobia and so forth. And yeah, I think
all the things. And I also highly recommend, and I should have said this, the Red Nation podcast. Nick Estes is and I don't know him at all, so this is not this is not me like co-signing on somebody that I know.
Great interview. There's a great interview that he did with Dr. CBS, and a very great conversation he did with Jared Ball a couple of months ago, which folks should definitely check.
And he just did one with Laura Shiha and Jared Ware on Millennials and Killing Capitalism. I find that podcast.
The Palestinian psychiatrist, right? Or
Lebanese. She's from Lebanon.
But she's Palestinian Lebanese, isn't
she? No, she's Lebanese. So the tricky part about Lebanon and Palestine is, these are colonizer lines, right? And so what I have learned is Lebanese people have family in Palestine, Palestinians have family in Lebanon. My understanding of Laura's history is she's Lebanese. Her family had to flee when she was a child. She grew up in part in Canada, and now she lives and works in the U.S. She is a strong advocate for the Palestinian people, but my understanding is she is Lebanese. So
okay,
yeah.
Oh, thank you for letting me know that, because I'm planning on like binge watching a bunch of stuff she's done on her own YouTube channel.
She is phenomenal. And her book comes out next month. Highly recommend that as well when it comes out. So,
but I'll just add to what you just said. What I mean, we're going into are we year two or year three of my hero John Pilger's death? But it's the anniversary of that, and he would say the following, which he said about his own colonial country of Australia, that nothing will change until we right the wrongs of the bloody past, and until we give back their nationhood. We can never claim our own, and we certainly cannot call ourselves a wonderful melting pot multicultural society until justice is given to the first Americans and to other indigenous peoples.
I agree. I agree.
All righty. Well, we were joined on this wonderful edition of One Plus One with Renee Johnston. Let me remind folks, you can check her out Saturdays with Renee at Black Liberation Media, which she co-hosts with our good friend. By the way, he's a One Plus One fan favorite, Jared Ball of I mix what I like. Renee, hope to have you back on in the future. When we do have you back on in the future, I am looking forward to it because you're going to educate us about the history and current affairs of Jamaica. And
Yes.
and until then, all my best to you. This is wonderful, and you give my best to the family at BLM, especially Jared. And again, thank you so much for coming back on the program.
You're welcome, Youri. Thanks for having me. Have a good one.